A special session is being held on Thursday, July 20th, 2017, 6 o'clock p.m. in the fifth floor conference room for a budget workshop. Roll call. Mugia.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Holland.
Here.
All right, we have three items on the list tonight. The first is elected officials looking at the district attorney's budget that Mr. Walker had asked for. I'm going to ask Mr. Bach to lead us into this presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. This is in response to the comments made by the Commissioner at our budget kickoff session. And with that, I asked the DA if he would be kind enough to come over tonight, which he accepted, and he's put together some remarks. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Dupree.
Welcome, Mr. Dupree.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and all of you fine commissioners. And
Can you push your microphone for me?
Yes, I can. All right, am I on now?
You are.
Let me start over. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and all of you wonderful commissioners and fine folks who are here. It is indeed a pleasure and honor to present to you all tonight. I want to appreciate Commissioner Walker for bringing up some concerns that he had concerning the amount of funds that the district attorney's office was making and the lack thereof. And with that, the request was that there was comparisons made to other counties. And so I got with the administration, Mr. Bach, and those folks, and I was able to get with the Kansas County and District Attorneys Associations to pull some numbers. And so this presentation, we will go through those numbers. Likewise, I was able to get with our chief legal counsel to get some of the same comparisons for across the street. And so this presentation will go through those numbers as well as a quick rundown of our office and what we stand for. Doug, am I okay with just pushing the button? Am I a go?
Yes.
Okay. I will note for the record that I did ask if I pushed a button, if I was a go. And thank you for helping me turn this on. And we have genius people here. You're amazing. Okay. Here we go. So that's the best picture that I could find of me. And so I put it on this presentation. We have our new seal. This is the seal that my administration worked together to put together. And you see our motto, which is Ministers of Justice. The focus of our office is to administer justice any way we can. Our theme is to really focus on being smart on crime. And it's led by a 1935 quote from the Supreme Court case Berger v. U.S., where they say that U.S. prosecutors are in peculiar and very definite sense the servants of the law. But while he may strike hard blows, he is not at liberty to strike foul ones. It is as much his duty to refrain from improper methods calculated to produce a wrongful conviction as it is to use every legitimate means to bring about a just one, which is why we focus on being smart on crime, hence being preventative and facing forward, which is a fundamental shift in our office to go from simply being prosecutorial to focus on being preventional and prosecutorial, which means that we have to do everything that we can to prevent crime, which is as much as a part of my office's job as is prosecuting the cases. And so with that in mind, the things that we have done since January in my office to really fulfill that vision is bring about paperless discovery. My office was sending everything to Kinko's, and it was costing 28 cents per page to copy for the defense lawyers. And so we got rid of that, and we were able within the budget that we had there already to go completely paperless concerning all of our police reports and discovery once we received them from the police department to give to the courts as well as to the defense. Our diversion program, we opened that up to more people. We have seen an increase from Year to date in 2016, we at this point had raised $81,000. Because of the different modifications that we've changed, year to date we're now at $99,000, so there's about a $20,000 increase in the income that we're bringing in with our diversion program. Our biweekly training for our assistant district attorneys, I believe that the best way to make sure that they do not fall on their faces is to make sure they know what they're doing. And so we train them biweekly in the courtroom and on presentations, because at the end of the day, after the police department and the fire department do all of this hard work and brings the case to us, if we do not know how to carry the case to the finish line to get a conviction, then all of that work is in vain. So we train hard. We have re-engaged with the drug court, which is a preventative process concerning addiction. We are very aware that the drug epidemic is continuously on the rise. And here in Wyandotte County, we have a fantastic drug court program, which is alternative to prison. I re-engaged our office with that, and so we are now connected with the courts, with the court services, the judges, and the probation to make sure that folks who come to my office, before we send them to prison, we have the opportunity to try to see if they need services and go through that program. My assistant district attorneys, there's 26 of us in that office, and we have modified the discretionary authority. Before I came in, only 3 attorneys in that office had discretionary authority to ultimately determine whether or not a case was going to go to trial or if it was going to plea out. We have 26 attorneys. Not every attorney in there has discretionary authority, which has given us the ability to move the caseload tremendously faster, because the person who is working on the case now knows that they have the ability, based off of the education that they have, the law degree that they have, and the training that they have, to make a decision on whether or not we need to go to trial or if we should be able to work this out. Likewise, we have all 20, not all 26, 24 of my attorneys are now on the major pager. What is the major pager? The pager is when the police department needs warrants, when they need subpoenas, they page one of my assistant district attorneys, and we go and meet them where they are, or we meet them at our office. Again, going electronic, we have a laptop. We then write up the affidavits, reach out to the judges, and send this out. Likewise, concerning any shootings, murders, higher level crimes, we go to the scene. So one of my assistant district attorneys, oftentimes 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 11 o'clock at night, we're out on the scene, and we're with the police department, because we have to make sure that we are careful with the evidence that we find and how it's processed, making sure that it will be able to withstand any legal argument in court. And so we're on the scene as well. It used to be just 4 folks. That is now opened up to 24 of my attorneys after training them, which is giving the police department assistance. I would say on average we get 2 to 3 major calls a week, multiple warrant calls steadily flowing in. Our case time, because of this training and the influx of having the attorneys do more, we have reduced the amount of time that a case takes from preliminary hearing, which is the probable cause hearing, to trial by 60 days. Why is that important? It's important because it costs $92 a day, last time I checked, to keep somebody in custody. You times that by, let's say, 100 people. Of course, we know we have over 300, 400 some folks in there, and so a lot of times these cases are being held up because the DA's office or the court is taking their time on things. Since we've been in, it's been a 60-day increase in moving things faster, hence ultimately saving funds there. I'll move on through here. The victims advocate, we have really pushed hard. We have 2 of them. We have a coordinator who has reached out to the community and is majorly involved with not just waiting until a person is a victim, but seeing how our office can step out in front and be a resource to those folks beforehand if they feel like something is happening. The civil side of the things that we do in our office, are the truancy cases. We know that there is a truancy to prison pipeline for our young people, and we have revamped our truancy program. I have met with all of our school districts. The rule is by statute 3, 5, and 7. If you've missed those many days, then you ought to be reported to my office. I will tell you that schools stopped reporting it to my office because nothing was being done. We have changed that, revamped it, and those school district superintendents as well as principals are eager to try it a new way. I must give kudos to Judge Cahill, who is absolutely ecstatic about potentially going out and having court at the schools to assist in dealing with some of our truant students. Hopefully it won't come to that, but he's excited about it. Our child in need of care, also SYNC area, which is involving the DCF, KVC, whenever a child is abused and or neglected. It is my attorneys who file those petitions. It's my attorneys who have to determine whether or not we're going to take the parental rights of someone away. These cases go on for years sometimes. We have also revamped our consumer protection. Maybe you all have just seen within the last month, we filed a consumer protection complaint against a business owner who was allegedly owning houses and then sending out false paperwork, evicting them, and ultimately he did not own the houses and the documents was falsified. This too fall on the civil side. Behavioral health court, we have worked with the district court in creating this program to deal with and assist with the mental health issues and concerns. Many of the folks that we deal with in our cases have mental health issues. Hopefully this behavioral court will assist with really nipping that in the bud and giving other alternatives than simply putting felonies on them. All 25 of the attorneys, as well as myself, and I believe in order to be preventative, you have to be a part of. And we know that to work in the district attorney's office, you have to live in Wyandotte County, which I must say is a huge pull on some of the folks coming into my office having to move from wherever they're moving from. But I believe that, hence being a true dot and loving Wyandotte County, just living here is not good enough. With that in mind, every last attorney that's in my office has to go out to schools. They have to do mock trials. They have to go to neighborhood watch organizations. We have gone out well over 50 times. All of my 25 attorneys have been a part of the community in the organizations doing programs as well as fighting in the courtroom. So again, prevention and prosecution. So we're working in the courtroom and out of the courtroom. And I've learned to work out every day because doing this, I have received numerous neighborhood watches in numerous schools, and all of them like to gift with cookies. All right, so jumping into the nitty-gritty. So I wanted to give all of that wonderful stuff about what we do. Now, you should have it in front of you. Hopefully you do, because those are pretty small. But I'll tell you, what you have in front of you are the salary disparities between the Kansas District Attorney's offices versus Wyandotte County. You have Johnson County at the top, and on the left-hand side, 2016, the DA salary there is $172,000. Sedgwick County's is $150,000. Shawnee County is $139,000. I will tell you that Shawnee County, I have spoke with them, these numbers are not accurate with Shawnee's. It has gone up in the last year because they did a recent study to increase these numbers. Douglas County, $149,000. Wyandotte County, $133,000. Now that's for my position alone. Now let's move over, if you will, to your right, and you will have the numbers of the assistant district attorneys that are in each of these counties with the amount of money that they're getting paid. I wanted to get actual numbers for you, and what the Kansas County District Attorneys Association had for me was the range. They said that if you would take 10 from the bottom and push it up is usually where the start is. And there's only 2 people in most of these offices that have the highest number that's on the grid. So when I talk about Johnson County starting out, they're usually starting anywhere from 60 to 71,000. Sedgwick County, 51 to 61,000, more so around that 61,000 area. Likewise, again, with Shawnee, I made phone calls, and in fact, I'm happy to say that I recruited one of those attorneys, and they were being recruited for $61,000. Though I was not able to pay them that much, I did tell them that they will get more courtroom time. It's the only thing that I had to negotiate with, sadly, but it was true. Douglas County, same situation. They're at 52 to 62,000 starting out, and it goes all the way up to that 98,000. With us, we are at 52,000, I believe 300. It says 51 here. We are at $52,400 that we are hiring starting with, and they are correct. It goes up to that 102,000 last year. So that's what it is there, and you can kind of cruise through that if you want some more there, but ultimately you have their top deputies making anywhere from $100,000 to $129,000. And I say that because I don't like to compare us to Johnson County. I know that their top deputies are making $150,000, $160,000, but I like to compare us more so to Sedgwick, Shawnee, because they're more around our size, especially with Shawnee, and they're making anywhere from $100,000 to $121,000. And then you see Douglas County, who is, of course, about 60 to 70,000 people average, less than us, and they are, in fact, at around $98,000 with their top deputies. I continue to move on, and if you look through, you also see the staff on the right-hand side. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. All right, so the disparities between the legal department here in Wyandotte County and the Wyandotte County District Attorney's Office. Why did I do this? I did this because the statewide county, there are difference in numbers and the amount of people that are in these different counties. But when we're dealing with the same pot of tax money, we're dealing with the UG Legal Department as well as the District Attorney's Office. And so I want to make sure that this wonderful group of folks knew where we were and where we stood within our county. And I appreciate Ken Moore for assisting me in getting these numbers. Truly appreciate it. And so here you have, with the UG Legal Department, they have a range from ultimately $60,000 to $81,000. That average salary being about $69,000. And you can see here that those numbers are starting out at about 60, ending up at about 81, but that average is at 69 there. Their attorney twos, the average salary is $81,000. Their attorneys are senior attorneys, which is comparable to my attorney threes and deputies, make $97,000, and then their deputy chief is at $109,000, which would be equivalent to my chief deputy. Now, right below that, you have my numbers, and so starting out where we are is because of that, I believe it was a 1% increase in January. We're at 53,400. So when I hire someone starting out at attorney one, that's what they're making at an attorney one. Attorney two in my office, after you've shown that you're good and you can handle yourself in the courtroom and you can handle a couple murder trials, you're going to get $57,000. And that oftentimes comes with 4 years of experience and being able to do murder trials and go out to the scene and investigate. Those special assignment, we're at $75,000 for those. We have 2 of those, and those special assignments are folks who are handling the some of the mentally ill cases, the care and treatment cases, the charging of juvenile as well as mental cases. And then you have my attorney threes, who are the ones who are handling my rapes, my murders, the worst of the worst, and they are making a whopping $61,000 is what they're getting, and that comes with usually anywhere from 5 to 10 years of experience. My chief deputy, who is the one who ultimately not only tries cases but has to deal with the entire caseload of all 26 of the attorneys that are in there, including me, he's making $100,000 there. my deputy district attorneys, I have 2 deputy district attorneys, which are the ones you have myself, the chief deputy, and then 2, if you will, deputies who really control and help lead when the chief deputy is not there. They're making 86, and they have the highest caseloads and the highest cases. And then you have me where I'm at 133,000. Yeah, and hopefully you know what I do. So those are the real numbers that we are at in compared to the UG Legal Department as well as the district attorneys across the state of Kansas. I would be remiss if I did not mention the difference in the support staff. I will say that I have worked with the administration, and there are 2 reclasses that are happening right now. We see that my administrative support on the low end is making $28,000. The remainder of them are making $36,000 on up, which is pretty comparable to the UG support. So you won't have to go back to those countywide numbers. They're pretty comparable to those as well. The only disparity that really was there was those 2. We have already went through the reclass process and worked with HR, and I believe that those are over in Doug's office waiting for the completion of those things. So that hopefully will be remedied. I will say also that it's my understanding that there was some reclassification that was occurring before the election occurred, and for all of the support staff that was there, once I got in office, of course I was not a part of that, and that is not on the table at this point. I am speaking with HR in concern of where that is and how I can get that going. My staff over there works extremely hard, I'm sure, like everybody else's staff, and a vast majority of them have second jobs. And so whatever we can do to further support that, I think that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so I don't like to just say, hey, here's the big problem. I like to give resolutions, okay? And so in my resolutions, I would like to say this is what I think would really assist my office. And why do we need assistance? Because we need assistance because I think it's extremely difficult to keep a staff of tenured attorneys to fight crime in Wyandotte County when they can go right up the street to another county and make about $10,000 less. And I'm not talking about to Johnson County. I'm talking about Topeka, okay? Or to come across the street within our own county and make about $10,000 more than what we're paying them over there, okay? And so I think one of the ways that we can do this, we can, starting out, we can start them at a range 13 at a level 4, which puts them at about a $62,000 range, which gives them the ability, quite honestly, a livable wage and to be competitive with other county offices around the state. Moving to attorney 2s, move them up to 70, and our attorney 3s and special assignment attorneys, move them to about the same to where they are, as well as concerning the special attorneys who are at 75, just put them in that bracket of 79. And those ranges, of course, are coming from the non-union classification compensation plan. Let me go back. This is what I say could happen in an amended budget of 2017. I don't think that all of this should be looked at for 2017. I think that if we could do half in 2017 and do the top half in 2018, I think it would be appropriate. Well, Dupree, what do you mean? Why is this appropriate? Let me tell you why this is important, and then I'll continue. I look at what we do in our office. I look at the amount of bodies that my attorneys see. I look at the irreparable or irreparable things that cannot be washed out of the minds of my assistant district attorneys when they're called out to the victims of crime in Wyandotte County. And they're called out to be utilized to assist so that the police department can do their job, so that the police department can arrest the right people, get the warrants, have the support, have the subpoenas, so that they can do what they need to do. And it is my sincere belief, which is why I made the motto Ministers of Justice, that it is our job to be the pinnacle and to help public safety. Though I know in our budget we are in the judicial. But without my office and without what we do, I don't care how many people are arrested, and I don't care how many people are brought to the courthouse. If my office do not have the equipment, the people, the wherewithal to take what the police department, the fire department, when they find these arsonists, if we don't have the training and the staff to lock these folks up, then everything that they do, every day that they put their lives on the line, is in vain, because we are not equipped to get the folks off of the streets and keep them off of the streets. Why do I say that? I say that because in the justice budget field that we're in, my budget is $4.8 million. I have 61 employees. If you look at the public safety police department, they have 53 million. Fire department, 54 million. Sheriff's department, 25 million. Let's stick with attorneys. I have 61 employees. Let's go across the street to the chief legal counsel's office. They have a $4.2 million budget. And I think they have 21, 25, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong. Here's the reality. The reality is, 1 year before I got into office, the district attorney's office lost 10 people within 24 months. And a huge part of losing 10 individuals was because ultimately someday you got to raise a family. You can't keep deferring those loans. And so I would say changing this in the amended in 2017, changing to the deputy district attorneys to 92, the chief deputy district to 110, as well as mine in 2018 would be, I believe, a resolution that would quite honestly bring us comparable to the rest of the state. I love Wyandotte County, and I don't like being called the bottom, and I don't like being called the worst, and I don't like being called crime dot, but here is something that we can fix. You have clearly been shown the numbers and seen that we're the bottom and we're the last. And within the same pot, we have some money. I will leave where those funds can come from and all of that stuff to the folks who are number people. I'm not. What I am is a realist. And what I do know is that when I hire people at $52,000, they come in looking to see when they can leave. And when they leave, I have to start all over training folks. I have to start all over. And the best way that we can become one community, one Wyandotte, and one rule of law is making sure that we have a group of attorneys that are in there that are not just dedicated to this community, but this community is dedicated to them. I will now yield the floor for any questions that anyone has at this point.
Commissioner Walker?
I brought this subject up a number of years ago when I first was on the commission with District Attorney Gorman. We had a meeting on that. There was a decision made at that time. There was some additional money put into the budget and a plan, I thought, that was a result of meetings between, I believe, Dennis, maybe you, and Mr. Gorman. You know, the concept that I brought this up for was the belief, it's kind of like, I'll use a comparison Mr. Kane makes. You know, No, maybe that'd be a bad comparison. Well, I was gonna say it's like union versus non-union and the quality of build you get. You know, not everybody that I hired and not everybody that he's going to hire are people we want to keep. And I had some of those. They showed up every day, they did what they had to do, and they didn't do anything more. And then I had some that you want to keep, you want to hold on to. And these people are just like anybody else. They need to sustain themselves and their family. And I would like to see the district attorney with a plan, the plan being we ultimately have a set of, and I don't know what the right number is, 10, 15, 20 career prosecutors, people that don't really want to do defense work or don't want to go somewhere else simply because of the money. They really like it. I've known a number of the prosecutors over 40 years that never really wanted to leave the DA's office, but they left primarily and went on into private practice or frankly, he's correct. I've hired a number of people over the years out of the district attorney's office, and many of those have now gone on to be judges. And I always was able to give people at least $10,000 more than they were making at the DA's office. And there was historically, in my opinion, a belief in the district attorney office before Mr. Gorman. And it's not, I'm not being critical of him. He ran it for 28 years and was highly admired, but he would hire people out of law school or with a limited amount of experience. I think hired you, didn't he, Mr. Moore? And he'd keep you for a year or two and train you, and then you were expected to leave because he wasn't going to give you any more money. Now, some hung on and eventually got more money, but he believed that that was how you ran the office. I believe you run up, you know, we want more police, we want all these people to be arrested that are doing wrong, and we got to process them through. We have this big funnel, and it's coming in, and the pipeline is pretty small to get them through. People wonder why it takes so long to get somebody to trial. Well, there are a lot of reasons, and I'm not going to say it's all because we have, you know, limited number of district attorneys or, you know, their experience or what, because defense attorneys are pretty good at dragging it out as well. But I will tell you that if you want the end result of our public safety program to be comparable to Johnson County, Sedgwick County, Douglas County, those are the ones I'm familiar with. I don't really know much about what they do in Shawnee County. Then you're going to have to create a plan. Now, I was never intending to get down in the weeds and say, well, the district attorney should make this much and all these different grades. But the concept that he has put forward is based in line with what I think it's going to take in a plan, and probably over a few years, to develop a core of people that are going to stay there and prosecute murder and rapes and violent assaults and the kinds of crimes, if it happens to you, you don't want some kid out of law school prosecuting that case. You just don't. Because the defense attorneys are sharp. And they're experienced, and you need somebody that, you need a core over there, just like you do in your police department, your fire department, of people that have seen it all, done it all, and are not going to fall for the usual feints and moves. So I was hoping what we would come out of here tonight with was, one, what Mr. Dupree has presented, clearly very, to me, very persuasive facts, and that we would direct him and Mr. Bach to work on a plan. And I don't mean one coming up 2 years from now. I mean a plan that we can put our teeth into on how we start attaining the goals he has set forward. And, you know, I'm not going to be here next year. You guys are going to be here, but you know, you want to stand up for crime, you better stand up for the district attorney's office. you need good people, long-term people, and district attorney's the guy you gotta trust. People elected him just like they did us. His style, I'll admit, is different than previous district attorneys, but that don't make it wrong. So well, he is.
I'll take that as a compliment.
It was meant to be a compliment.
Thank you, sir.
It was meant to be a compliment. So, okay, I've said my piece. I don't know if I agree with all these numbers, but I certainly agree that the trend has to go upward if we're gonna have the kind of people we want prosecuting cases.
All right, Commissioner Johnson and then Bynum.
Mr. DA, do you have any sense or any data relative to the caseload of your attorneys as opposed to those that may be in some of the districts that you have referred to in terms of caseload per attorney?
Yes, I do have that, and I can get that to you all. I will tell you that we are higher in caseload than most of these other counties. We are somewhat comparable to Sedgwick County. I will tell you that Sedgwick, which is Wichita, has an office of about 50 attorneys, as well as about a 50 non-attorney. So they have about 100 people in there. We have 61 with the 26 attorneys. But our caseload is real comparable to them. As far as Johnson County, Douglas County, and Shawnee, yeah, we beat them out. We tend to have some crime here. I'll say it like that. And so, and my attorneys has to deal with them. And it's important that I note here, I am different, again, with that prevention and prosecution. So I'm forcing my attorneys to do more than traditional prosecutors are doing, because I believe that's how you can help Wyandotte County. But we need attorneys in there who are not just taking the caseload and they have 100 cases or 125 cases, which is kind of about where they are, and they're running back and forth to court, and because they don't have enough time and or not being paid enough, thus not willing to put more time in it, they're kind of just throwing cases and moving on, which does not make it safer for us.
Yeah, I think that the local district attorney's office is really the ground level for any community as relates to administering justice and a lot of the things that we see on television is played out at the local level. So I do believe that we need to make sure that we have adequate resources to make sure that we're providing a community that is as safe as possible. So I agree with Commissioner Walker's comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bynum and then Townsend and Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Dupree. Forgive me if you introduced the two gentlemen that came with you. I missed it if you didn't. Make sure you do that. I just wanted to make a couple of comments and questions. On your slide where you talk about your changes in 2017, could you just tell me, open diversion to all, what diversion and what kinds of cases are you talking about?
So, number one, thank you, Madam Commissioner. I always receive wisdom at all times. I did not introduce my Chief Deputy, Damon Mitchell, who is immediately to my right, and likewise, the first ever public information officer in the District Attorney's Office here in Wyandotte County, Mr. Jonathan Carter, whom I stole from Channel 5. So those are definitely supported. And I likewise have my Manager of Office and Community Affairs, Ms. Brandy Wells, who's in the back. She is my budget person. So just in case you ask a question I don't know, she will pass me a little yellow note with the answer. So, having said that, concerning the diversion, so diversion being if you are out of trouble for 6 months to a year, in most criminal cases it is a year, in traffic cases it is 6 months. And so with that, it used to be that you could get a diversion for traffic cases that does not include speeding beyond a certain number. I think it was 15 or something, as well as you could only get it one time, period. Likewise, in the criminal division, if it was a level 7, 8, no, excuse me, a level 8, 9, and 10, and it was a non-person. So in Kansas, we have person crimes as well as non-person crimes. Non-person crime being theft of your purse, theft of a car, things that does not include the person. The person crime is I hit you in your face, I rob you with a gun, it involves a person. And so, and likewise, you could not get a diversion if you were not a U.S. citizen, okay? And so what I did is I opened that up to all folks. Because, hence meaning U.S. citizens, non-citizens, because we have them all in Wyandotte County. So you can get a diversion in that regard. Secondly, I opened it up to levels 8, am I correct? 8, 9? Yeah, 8, 9, 10, person and non-person felonies. Well, it involves a person. Why would you do that? Well, let's talk about what a person level 8 involves. And I think I may even went up to a 7. That includes, say, a battery. Someone hits you with their fist. Well, if they hit you with their fist and there's no bruise, we consider that a misdemeanor battery. If they hit you with their fist and they hit you a little hard, there's a bruise, it's a felony and it's a level 9. Well, if they hit you and there's a bruise, but it's black and blue rather than just black, now it's a level 7. Well, the only difference is the amount of force that he hit you. So for me, a hit is a hit. He deserves the opportunity to see if he's going to get his act together, or she, because we got some fighting women in our community as well. So with that in mind, I opened this up, and the thought process, Commissioner, was the #1 crime starter, not just in our county, but in our country, is the lack of job opportunity. And what we find is that there are very few jobs given to those who have felonies on their record in any place, let alone here in Wyandotte County. So I believe, again, being preventional and prosecutorial is giving them the opportunity and preventing them from getting a felony on their record if they can show that they are going to take the classes that we tell them, they're going to stay out of trouble, they're going to pay the fines, and so on and so forth. So that's what I mean when we say we open it up.
Could you go to your next slide too, on the comparisons?
Yes, ma'am.
On Johnson County, when it says 18, is that attorneys?
When it says,
Full-time, 18?
no ma'am, 18 is for the assistants, but if you go over to your
okay.
left, they have 32.
32 attorneys.
They have 32
Okay.
attorneys.
And then for Wyandotte, it's 24.
It's 24, it's 26 now. Last year, we were approved for one other attorney. I think that was a part of what you all afforded the previous administration, and so that person started with my administration. So we now have 25, and then including me, I like to be a number, so 26.
61 employees, 25 of which are attorneys.
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have that right?
That
Okay.
is correct.
And then, as far as, if you could just share with me and people that are watching the interface, if you will, of the DA's office and the unified government. And by that I mean, do the folks that want to work in the DA's office use the unified government's HR system to apply? And then how are those salaries determined? Are they determined by a classification scale that's across the board within the unified government? Or just help me understand
Yes, ma'am.
that piece of how the DA works with the unified government. And the reason I ask is because I think that your office is one of the unique pieces within our unified government that people need to understand. You're not a state employee, is that correct?
My employees are not, but I
You are, but your employees are not.
Right,
They
and-
are employees of the county,
Correct,
and they participate in our benefit program
correct.
that's offered through our unified government.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this correct?
And I was going to defer, Mr. Mayor. I saw you give me the hand. Do you want me to wait? And
No, I was going to ask Mr. Bach if he wanted to answer that, because he's
Yeah, that's
worked
fine.
on this for a long
It's
time.
interesting because we have entities within our unified
Yes.
government
It's very
that
complicated.
are doing the work of
The government.
someone else, for example, motor vehicle.
right.
So,
And I'll tell you, and Mr. Bach, please chime in here, but I will tell you that we are considered, as some would say, statute-ordered positions and statute-ordered offices. We are not a money-making office. Our job is not to go out and find you some money. Our job is ordered by law to assist in making sure that our county stays safe. And with that, by those statutes, then this commission is ordered to make sure that we have the financial ability and capacity to do the job that is given to us, which once unification came about, which made that little complication of my statement even more complex, going into now there's no city and county, now we're all one. And so I'll tell you that by statute, we do not have to use the HR, we do not have to use any of your compensation standards, we don't have to use anything that you have there. However, what has been seen throughout the previous district attorneys, as well as myself, having met with Mr. Bach and the HR director, Ms. Ramirez, and their persuasive ability to let me know that it is in everyone's best interest to at least align ourselves and to do exactly what their HR does and says. And so with that, that is what we do. And so our folks go through the HR, they fill out their applications through HR, they have to abide by all of the same rules and regulations, though they are, if you will, employees at will in my office.
Okay.
Because they're in my office,
Gotcha.
they're still considered employees of the UG.
Okay.
Now, Doug, please fill in where I missed.
No, he accurately reflected it, and I think it's one that, not only from the HR perspective, he also uses our procurement system, and that's really where we've worked on it. That way, we're there for payroll as well as that, you know, I mean, because the difference to that be, and we've always operated, if you're gonna use it, you use it all the way,
Right.
and not partially, and that's what the DA's elected to do, so he's worked very well with us as we've come into it and just working through the different steps in the procedure. So his employees that want to apply, we advertise for them, handle that paperwork, put it out. They come in, apply. We do the initial vetting and then pass them over to his office to go through and work from that standpoint.
Well, we have a number of offices that are independently elected, but we handle a lot of the personnel. The sheriff is independently elected. We handle the personnel for the sheriff's office, including the negotiations for the union. We have the Register of Deeds office, and then the courthouse, which the salaries of many of the courthouse are set by the state, but their support staff are unified government employees.
Actually,
Not-
when you're thinking of district court, they are state employees.
All of them are state
So
employees.
they are set by that process and they are hired through that process. So there is a difference with that group.
and I'm just trying to point out, there are functions by county government that are mandated by state law, that county government funds, but they're actually operating under a set of state statutes, like the election commissioner, et cetera. So, that was really the only point I was trying to make. The slide before, the very last slide, where you talked about the potential of, how to get the job done on what you need.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a dollar figure in mind, total, in terms of amended 2017 and 2018?
Well, I'll tell you, I couldn't get an exact number as I was trying to really figure out the classification compensations steps and ranges. But I will tell you, ultimately, it would move our budget from about a 4.8 somewhere to about a 6 million is what it would, with those increases, give or take a few. And that is including doing it one half in 2017, the other half in 2018, and a continuation of those salaries. And so I think that's where it would be. And of course, Doug is the numbers guy, and I'm sure he can crunch those and tell me later on how far off I was with that. But ultimately, that's what we're looking at.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
That brings us to Commissioner Townsend, and then Walters, and then Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Walker for putting this on the agenda, continuing to bring this issue up. And it takes a while sometimes for you to hear something a second or a third time. There's so much that we all deal with throughout the year with these budgets. Everything doesn't sink in, or it's not the priority for you in budget year last year, year before that it may be. So this continues to be a very important issue. And to DA Dupree, I would say this presentation has been so cogent and direct in what our situation is in Wyandotte County compared to like counties. So maybe it's just now sinking in, but the presentation certainly has gone a long way to help me better understand what it is that you need and what it is you're looking for. I think it's very reasonable. I'm also appreciative of the approach that you're taking, because aside from just what we would expect attorneys in your office to do, prosecute cases after the crime has been committed, or the allegation there's been a crime committed.
Of course, alleged crime.
Alleged, alleged. But the point is, you are unleashing an additional 61 well-gifted individuals into the community to be role models to help stem the tide of what may end up at your office. So that alone, I think, is worthy of the additional value and the dollars that you're seeking here. So I appreciate that. I recall your presence on the scene last year, one of the saddest weeks I've had as a commissioner, late August, early September of last year, where we had about, I think it was 4 homicides within the space of about 5 or 6 days. So what we are asking your staff to do, and I couldn't do it. I knew coming out of law school this was not going to be my calling in the legal field, and you touched on it before. You can't unsee some of these scenes that your staff is asked to go out and assist our police in. And this comparison shows that they don't have to do that. They could come across the street and do something certainly with a less heinous mental imprint. So I think if there's any way that our administrator and hopefully the rest of the commissioners will appreciate that it is time to do something to increase the money that we are paying the DAs and yourself in this department, because it is bettering our situation, and hopefully your approach is going to stem the tide of what your office has to deal with. But in the meantime, you're unleashing tremendous assets up front. And thank you, Mr. Carter. I knew I wasn't going crazy. I said, I know that face. well, welcome, and welcome to Deputy Mitchell as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Walters, and then Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Dupree. A very good presentation. I agree. We have some work to do. My question, I think, really is more for Mr. Bach to understand what is in the budget that you've proposed. I see that the 2017 amended budget has $4.4 million for personnel, which is a $344,000 increase over 2016, which is 8%. So I hope that some of the issues that District Attorney Dupree has raised might be able to be solved within your 2017 amended budget, or if not, maybe you could explain what is in there. And similarly, a smaller increase for the 2018 budget of 182,000 or 132,000, which I guess is the raise that you have said is in the budget for all employees, perhaps. But maybe you could just explain a little bit about what is in the personnel costs that that you're proposing for the DA's office?
And Mr. Bach, if I may, Commissioner,
Sure.
as he prepares his answer for that, I will say that there was a request on from my office to get some equipment. When I got into the office, and many of you have seen the different pictures, we have a lot of files that go 60 years back, and we keep them right now in the old jail of the courthouse, the 4th and 5th floor. And I will just say that it is not an appropriate place. And if you want to know more, come visit my office. I got with the administration and I got with the tech folks over here. And after consulting with them, the administration did find some funds and put into our budget for next year to begin to move those files and begin the process of putting them digital form so that we will not have to have our staff reaching above their head for 50-pound boxes in
Sure.
unsafe areas. That's one. The second thing was concerning going digital. They did find funds to assist our attorneys in potentially purchasing computers so that we can get rid of paper altogether, not just with our discovery. So I will say that those things the administration has been so ever kind to put into our budget. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Please, Mr. Bach.
Commissioner, there's a couple of different things that go into the changes in the numbers, and I will have our budget director go into those a little bit more detail. But there were some changes, I believe, when Mr. Dupree came in, so we had to modify some of the personnel salaries to match where we were going with that. And then, as you noted, for 2018, that does account for the 2% increase that we're looking at across the organization, as well as the 14% that we are looking at in additional health care cost for every employee in the organization. But when it comes to 2017, Mr. Lindsay, our budget director, are you able to break that down a little bit more?
Some of the changes that we have with the 2017 were we did move some of the some operating costs up into personnel. And then also, some of our costs didn't come in as we had planned in the personnel budget. But we did, as far as when Mr. Dupree came in, as Doug said, we did move some funds from the operating budget into the personnel budget. And then the costs didn't end up being what we did, so we were able to true the cost down.
Well, okay, I don't understand that, but I don't know where the operating costs were in the 2016 budget that are now in personnel in 2017. But I don't want to undermine what Mr. Dupree has presented. I do agree with the general presentation that we need to be competitive with salaries, and I just would, I guess maybe could follow up after this meeting to understand a little bit more about the 8% increase in personnel costs for 2017 amended, if it doesn't begin to address some of the things that were presented tonight. Thank you.
Commissioners Kane and then McKiernan.
Thank you, Mayor. DA Dupree, what I really appreciate is the fact you compared us to the other municipalities in the state of Kansas. Because that's where we all live, and that's where people are going. And you're right, they go to Topeka, they can go to Johnson County, they can go anywhere they want. And I agree with Hal that things need to be changed, but to be honest about it, what I thought was gonna happen today was you and Doug are gonna come in and say, here's what we got. And I don't know why I thought that, because when we were talking about that, I thought you guys had something worked out where you would come in and say, here's what we have. Now that we don't have that, one, we need to do something. But two, I would like to see the two of you get together and come back and say, here's what we come up with. And then Doug, you can say it's gonna take X amount of dollars, and we can say yes, or we can say no, or we can say half of that, or a portion of this, or whatever. But they need something. What that is, I don't know. And I hope you two guys can tell us.
Thank you. Commissioner McKiernan and then Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Dupree, thank you for the information, and I do agree with what's been said here that I would like to see steps taken, but part of what I'm going to say stems back to Commissioner Markley advocated for and finally got in the fall of 2015 a compensation and classification study of selected positions within our organization to other peer organizations. And what I want is, not tonight, but I want to follow up on this, because at the time of that report in December of 2015, the report showed that we had 12 benchmark positions which were considered significantly misaligned with the market. Now, ADA 1 was one of those 12 positions that was significantly misaligned, and it was behind the market. 10 of those 12, we were behind the market. 2 of those 12, we were ahead of the market. And so what I'd like to know is how we've used or how we've let this comp and classification study shift and mold our decisions in, we've only had, now this is our second succeeding budget since the time of that report, but how this study and those misalignments are shaping our decision making as it relates to changes not only within this department, but within other departments where we are similarly misaligned with the market and potentially not recruiting the talent that we could otherwise recruit and not getting the benefits of that talent that we could otherwise get.
Mr. Bach, do you want to respond to that?
Certainly. The initial, and I will say within the DA's office, that's been a little, with the changeover, been a little mixed in how we handle it. Some of the initial things we did with district attorney was we created somewhat of a career ladder that could be in place because it was fairly flat before, and so when someone got hired, you didn't see the multiple steps that were easy to go through. So we came with that. With Mr. Dupree coming on, there was quite a turnover in the office staff. So that resulted in some changes, and I don't know that it was necessarily that people moved down, but we modified some people he brought in higher, some lower, and worked with that. I do believe the and I do know that about that compensation plan, that it noted that we were low on that end. I mean, and everything we look at as we come back to those, we'll go back and do additional research on specific classifications when we determine that's something we want to make an adjustment to. We spend a fair amount of time going through that because we try to address these in wholesale fashions, and those are some of the steps we've taken in a couple of departments. We've started to address and work through those. I think the opportunity with the DA's office is now here with us. I think him coming in with a relatively new staff in a lot of areas does warrant, you kind of want to get people on board a year before you start bumping a lot of people up in wages. So I appreciate the fact he comes in and ready to move everybody from that standpoint. But I mean, I just met earlier this week with one of my other departments about pay classification differences between where we have employees in that group who are compressed, I will say, amongst about 20 different people in their group, and looked at a lot of the different comparisons we have. Those are ones we'll go through. We take that data, we compare what we had with the compensation program. Then I'll go back and I have HR look at it. We factor where we're at, and then we try to make decisions on what we can, how we can build that into our budget going forward. Last year with this, we built in a little bit of money to handle some classification or compensation changes. And then when that happens, we just have to, if somebody's salary went up 8%, then we just have to build that in going forward in our future budget years. So that, but over across all our employees, a lot of times that just kind of melds into where, you know, it doesn't stick out so much. I think that's what we need to do with the attorney's office. He provided some good comparisons, though I would say when we do comparisons, we look beyond the state of Kansas. We look at comparable governments for where we have. Some don't naturally work with us as well. I mean, because you can't look at the small rural counties in the state of Kansas, look where we're at. Johnson County, and I appreciate the fact that he noted every department head always has Johnson County on the top of every list when I see the comparables. But they always recognize, if I'm gonna hit that mark, it's always high. And of course, he can only do the counties. I can have a department walk in with 23 different cities on that list, and they're all in Johnson County, you know, and show how much more they're making. Though the reality is, those are the folks we're competing with. So I can't ignore those numbers because they are ones where we get to and we take that analysis and we try to figure out how many people we may be losing, and that's kind of the turnover side of the equation. But you also have to look over into Missouri and see what's going on in those areas as well. So to me, I would like to take the opportunity to work this, go through it. This isn't something that I go back, crunch numbers, come back next Monday and say, hey, we got to modify the budget. That's really not the way we should handle personnel and not the way we should handle raises, or I'm going to have a request from 40 different departments to be sitting in that chair next year as we go through the budget process, and that would be a complete change from how this form of government works. And I think that's where I would like to continue to do it, take the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that we will have an amended 2017 to address his problem, but it is something we can work forward with into the coming years, how to make those adjustments.
And I really appreciate that, and I just want to say that I completely understand that there is a natural and a very strong tension between wanting to correct these misalignments. If we're behind the market, that means ultimately we're going to spend more to align ourselves with the market, and that is directly opposed to what we have all stated we want to do here, which is to lower the mill rate and lower the tax dollars. And so we've got a natural tension between solving this problem and solving or attaining our goal in terms of our tax rate. And I completely get that, and so I appreciate the fact that you are not just going off and doing anything in some sort of a slapdash fashion.
And as you know, our largest cost center is personnel. So when we want to talk mill rate reduction and be sound about it and be year over year and where we are, we have to talk about where I am with personnel.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I correct something that I said earlier?
Yes.
I don't know you guys' protocol, so that's why I asked to speak. I said that it would be an increase for about $1 million. The young lady back in the yellow has corrected me. It is, in fact, $300,000, so significantly less than what I said. $300,000 increase within a year, an entire budget year. That is minus the benefits that would also have to be included on top of that. But we're looking at $300,000 in costs plus benefits, whatever that ranges is what we're looking at. And Mr. Mayor, when we're all done, I hope I have an opportunity to speak again.
No question. I'll give you an opportunity for a summative comment.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right. Mr. Walker, Commissioner Walker, and Commissioner Philbrook.
You know, I'm probably going to overreact, so if I do, I'll apologize to begin with. When we do these budgets, so thus far this year, and I point back to other years, there's that old saying about a lot more gets said than done. Well, that's definitely what we do. We talk, everybody agrees, and now, you know, we don't want to jump into anything. I think it's been clear, unless I've misunderstood the commissioners that spoke, that we all agree that something needs to be done. And, you know, when I was here, I don't know how many comp and class studies we had over the 32 years. But I will guarantee you that not one of those comp and class studies was ever fully implemented. And I don't believe the last one was fully implemented either. Because we never intended from the very beginning, we being our predecessors, to take the money to fund it in the way that it needed to be funded. Our salaries have lagged behind comparable cities for the most part, unless you're very good at selecting the correct cities that you know in advance. and those are gonna turn out lower, so it doesn't look like you're so bad. We're not competing against some rural location. We're not really probably even competing against Sedgwick County, to be honest with you. We're competing right here in a metropolitan area. And we are arguing about what is obvious, that our district attorneys are not staying historically. He said 10, I forget which period of time he alluded to. I will tell you, over the years, they have deserted in droves. And we've hired new people, they stay for a few years and they move on. Unlike my office, Kenny office, we had a lot of people that never left. The pay raises were reasonably good, the pay was comparable, the benefits. You know, if we leave this again with this sort of general hee-haw direction of, well, Doug will get with the district attorney and they'll try to figure something out over the next God knows how many months, nothing will get done, and it'll be here again next year. Are we the commissioners in charge of this budget, or is it administration? I guess I've come to the point where if we don't do any damn thing on this, we don't reduce budget, we don't want to reduce taxes, we just might as well not even have these ridiculous workshops and just tell him to drop a budget and we'll just rubber stamp it. Whose budget is it anyway? It's our budget. It's our primary duty under the charter. It is not the mayor. He's got all the power in a lot of ways. It's not the administrator. It's our budget. Now, if you want to just be a rubber stamp for what they put out there and do that, then that's fine. You know, I brought up about reducing taxes. You all know the people out there, out in the community, want that mill levy reduced. Well, nobody wants to do that right now. And so far, we haven't made one cut that I'm aware of in the budget. So right now, we're sitting here, and we know we've got a problem, and we're going to kind of say, well, let's let Doug and him get together and talk it over, but we're not going to do anything. Well, I don't want to do that. If we're not, you know, why even come to these meetings except the final one? If we're not going to make any changes, if we're not going to put our imprint, what we want in this budget to be there. I just feel that way. And, you know, it's been very clear. He's made a very persuasive case. Previous district attorney made a persuasive case too. And nothing changed, did it? So, as far as I'm concerned, our decision tonight should be direct Mr. Bach to meet with the district attorney, make a substantial movement towards accomplishing the objectives that we all so far have agreed with, and to bring it back for the 2017 budget. So whether we've got 2017 amended or 2018, I want to see a decision made. And if that's not the wish of the commissioners, then I've done all I can do. But if we're not going to cut the budget or work on the budget, why should I come to any more of these meetings? Why should you come? It's already cut in the wool, and we'll just show up on, what, the 27th and adopt it. And go home and be proud of ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
Okay. Let me ask you a question, sir.
I don't know if I want to answer it. No, I'm kidding with you. Go ahead.
Well, you know how flip I am, so I doubt it's going to be too difficult.
Yes, ma'am.
So she corrected you, the lady in yellow corrected you, and said it was going to be around 330,000. Now, is that per year increase for the next 4 years? Am I correct on that?
And so let me repeat that for the microphone. Ms. Brandy Wells, my office manager, I said yes to, and it's 300,000, not 330,000.
Okay.
But 300,000.
Well, sorry, I tried to give you too much. Give it back.
Please continue. We'll take the 330 back. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood. But it was an additive thing. It wasn't just, it's not just 330 or 300,001.
No,
it's
ma'am. It's
keep adding it on?
Added to the budget every year. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So eventually then it's 1.2,
Eventually, it'll
or,
catch
yeah,
up,
over
I'm
4
sure.
years. Yeah,
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that that was extremely clear, because sometimes when we talk about adding stuff to the budget, it's like a one-time thing, or it's, then we just keep adding or we don't. So I'm just wanting to make that clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I do agree that we need to come in line in your area, and I know we need to come in line in a lot of our areas. Although I'm not sure how the heck we're gonna cut our budget, but increase our budget at the same time. So, where are we gonna take it from to move it to? I sure don't know. And I'm definitely open for suggestions, because I would like this money to fall out of the sky so you could have it all at once, actually. But I don't know where that would come from, unless the Coffin Foundation would like to send us 1.2 mil. But other than that, I think we are going to have to go back to the table to figure out a plan to actually put it into action. Okay? I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel about wanting us to create a plan to put this into action to happen over the next 4 years. I have no idea. I do know how this commissioner feels, but as far as for the rest of them. But that, to me, would make sense, but I just don't know how we're going to do it.
I will say, we have Commissioner McGee and then Commissioner Kane. But I would say, I have heard a consensus around this table that there's a desire to move forward with a plan. And I think there is legitimacy in saying we wanted to start, whether it's 17 or 18, we wanted to start sooner than later. We're not looking for a 2019 plan to start. But if you, $300,000 with benefits, we're looking at closer to $390,000. The other thing that I'm conscious of is I don't want to then flip the script and have our city legal team on the other side. So we are going to, if we're going to address attorneys in the organization, we're going to need to look at both sides of that, because I don't want to solve one problem and create another one. But I do hear a consensus, unless I've missed it, that there's a desire to start moving in the right direction with the salary study, with the recommendations that we've been brought today. And then I think we can ask Mr. Bach to look through it and bring us on Monday a preliminary recommendation. So I think that's something we can do. And then we need to see our appetite for what change he recommends, because it's going to have to come from somewhere. So I think that's the next step. And that's what the consensus that I've heard from this group, unless I've misheard it. So I don't know that, I haven't heard someone say, I want all $390,000 in amended 17, but I didn't hear the DA say that either.
I was about to, if you want.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
I will absolutely say yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think.
I don't know what I have yet. I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, I think what we need to do is we have a number, or we have a preliminary number. Obviously, we're going to have to crunch that down. We're going to have to get our budget office involved and look at what that's going to mean and run the numbers. And then Mr. Bach's going to have to come back with whether it's a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year plan to get us to where we think we need to be. It would not be unlike us to do a multi-year plan to try to get to where we're going. But it just depends on how big a bite we want to take. So I do hear a consensus to make some movement now. I have not heard anyone say we want to sit down on this. All right, Commissioner Murguia and Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I want to reduce taxes, also Commissioner Walker, and I want to give our district attorney what they need to do their job. In every community survey that we've ever taken, the community has said that they wanted more public safety. And I would include the district attorney's office in public safety, because without you, we can't prosecute the cases that our police officers bring to you. And we need to do that in a quality way. We can't do that in a quality way if you don't have the money to do that. I, like you, District Attorney Dupree, like to come to the table with a solution. I think all the commissioners, at least what I've heard, want to see you get the money that you need and want to see the mill rate go down. But the reality of that is that in order to do that, we have to take money somewhere else, from somewhere else. And I'm not opposed to doing that. I think where the frustration comes from with what Commissioner Walker is talking about comes from the way that we get to a balanced budget. Like I said, we have to take money from somewhere else in order to give you the money that you need to do your job. So a few years ago, I had asked for a list of all the services that the unified government provides that are mandated by statute, by legal statute. And I had suggested at that time that our government try to focus on those things that were mandated to fund them well, and do them well, because I believe that's what our job is. Unfortunately, over the years, many years prior to any of us sitting up here, along the way, other politicians had chosen to add to that list and fund programs or special interest projects. Somehow, that became almost an entitlement fund, where now those organizations or those groups expect that funding every single year. They were not one-time or two-time or three-time capacity building funds. They ended up being forever and ever. And now we're in a situation where for decades we have given out money to organizations and groups that expect that money on a regular annual basis. So I'll say again, as a reminder of what I said when our first budget workshop started, that we want a safe and quality Wyandotte County across the board, east to west, north to south, and I think we all agree on that. And we also have agreed on that the way to lower our mill levy, and one strategy to get you what you need and get others what they need, is to grow our community. And really, that is the long-term goal, and I think we're all in agreement with that. Where it becomes difficult is while we're growing our community, is what do we do in the interim with the funding that we have, which obviously I think has been clear we don't have enough of. So I'll say again what I suggested before is that we fund what we're required to fund by state statute, be very focused and vigilant about that, and not that that will give us tons of extra money either, but I think it's a good start in the right direction. I don't see any other solution. And some might say, we've talked about these smaller programs before, or these smaller amounts of money that we give out. And we've said, every time one comes up to be cut, there's a single or a couple or 3 or 4 commissioners that step up and say they don't want that to happen. Well, just a little bit of research I've done, those small $50,000, $100,000 programs are nickel and diming us to death. And if we add all of those up, there are some things that we could fund. So again, I'll just remind everyone, I'm like you, District Attorney Dupree. I mean, if there's a problem, I like to approach it with the solution. What I'm proposing may not be very politically popular, but I think it's a very practical solution. And I think it would also eliminate our community's expectation is that our government has to be everything to everybody. We can't do that. We can't do that and move all of Wyandotte County forward. So right now, we don't have as much money as we'd like to have. So if we do what we do really well, and in the interim work together to grow all of Wyandotte County, to increase property values all across Wyandotte County, not in just very small areas of our county, I think that eventually, as that funding increases, we can make stronger commitments to those agents or those departments that we are required to fund, and maybe then consider capacity building financial opportunities for special interests and other organizations. Thank you.
Commissioner Kane.
Mr. Walker, I think you're going to miss us. And I'm glad you got fired up. Because, and you did, and I killed it the first time. No doubt about it. But when they come up and they explain they need this, and that, and I didn't mean Doug and him go off and not come back in a month and a half. This is something that's important to all of us. We've said it. It's time that we give them the assignment to go fix it. But I wasn't talking about dragging their feet because, and you're right, I don't want to rubber stamp anything. And in fact, you remember, I'm the one that has voted no by myself before because I felt that was the best thing. And what you said tonight, you felt that's the best thing. So Doug, I think you've got your assignment. I think the commissioners all agree with that. And I think that you guys should get to it.
All right. Is there any other discussion on this topic? Mr. Dupree, if you'd like to make a summative comment.
Yes, I will conclude with this. I appreciate all of the work that you fine commissioners do. I appreciate the work that Mr. Bach and all of his wonderful administration does. But I truly appreciate the work that every last one of the 61 employees in my office does on a daily basis. And they come to work, and they work and give everything that they have, making less than everybody they know, and they still come to work. I want to be clear that I understand that we are not Johnson County, and that we are not as large as Sedgwick County. And so there are some people, as Mr. Walker said, I will not be able to keep. But there are those, like a young lady who I took out of a very small western county, who came here to make less than what she was making, and she just won a trial today of 2 boys who was molested and raped by their uncle multiple times. And her counterparts in 4 of these counties make a minimum of $15,000 more than what she makes. But she comes in and she fights like a beast because she has a desire to bring justice for every victim in this county. I do not want it to be said or thought that I have a grudge against fire department, police department, or even Ken Moore in his office. The reasons why I brought these numbers up is because I know I can't compete with Johnson County. But when you have the unified government, and we are unified in one, but when my main competition is across the street, it makes my attorneys think twice. Luckily, you're right. When they get over there, they're making good money, and they're not going to leave. So I'm not asking that you compare us to folks that are not in our county. I'm asking that you give the folks in my office what is the market value of their talent, of their skills, and of what we as a county are already paying for an office that is working hard in the civil department. I'll conclude with this. And I will meet with Doug with whatever thing we need to do as soon as we need to do it, and hopefully come back quickly. But we all say that the district attorney's office is public safety. And again, I say, my budget is not public safety budget. Public safety, they're getting 53 million. Public safety, they're getting 54 million. 60% of our total county budget goes to public safety. But the DA's office is over in justice, and I got to fight for 1.2 million. So if it is 1.2 million, I'm not asking for 53. So how do we resolve this? I say that you keep me in justice, but then you supplement that 1.2 and you find out of one of them and you find me $1.2 million from the public safety. So that way, when I come here, I can say not only are we justice, but we are a part of public safety, because every last one of my attorneys feel that we are, and every police officer and fire department that we fight neck to neck with and hope we can get a conclusion, the right conclusion, to make sure that boy, that child, and that person is not violated again. They consider us public safety. We need law enforcement, and law enforcement needs us. And so how do we find the funds? You treat us as unified government and as public safety. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much for coming up and for the presentation. We appreciate it. And we do have another presentation now on probably one of the more complicated puzzles that Wyandotte County has woven, is how we handle libraries in Wyandotte County. Now, I want to make as we switch out for the presentation, I do want to note that it's 7:30. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we will come back, a 12-minute break, because then we'll come back at 11:45. That'll be even. Thank you. Mr. Dupree, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner.
about the library mill rate. So there was a question raised about the approval by this body of the library mill rate. It turns out the library is a very long and very interesting saga that has a 130-year history.
We're not going to go through the whole history.
We are not. So I say this
The fast version.
because I aspire to have a 10-minute presentation, because the answer is there's not much we can do about it in this budget. So if we want to learn more and dive more deeply into library issues for our own edification, we can come back at a special session after the budget. So let's click through quickly the overview, and then we will go. And I just want to say, whoever tore that building down is not my friend. Okay, go ahead.
So this was one of the first libraries built in Wyandotte County. It was built with a Carnegie grant of $100,000 in 1901. Yeah, it's on 6th and Minnesota. And beautiful library, yeah. The reason that this, and it was torn down, actually Ken and I were looking it up in 1965. So it's probably down around the corner here. And the key thing on this slide I just wanted to point out is the governance of the library system in our county began back in January of 1899 when the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education accepted the responsibility of library administration. So that's where it all started, somewhat. So overall, I am going to try and go through this rather quickly. Yes, I did want to point out that we have a variety of libraries, which I've shown pictures here. This is the main library here at 625 Minnesota, and we have West Wyandotte County Library here. But generally, there are two library systems in our county. The first one is called the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library, and the second is the Bonner Springs City Library. And so the original Wyandotte County Library District was created by the County Commission in 1965 with the authority of the state statute to provide library services in areas not served by the library system already in place, which was in the USD 500 school district. And so those were those respective surrounding populations based on the US Census in 2010. So then that library district, it's governed by a board, and prior to 1999, the board had 5 members on it appointed by the county commission. In 1999, the board, it has the authority, the board, the library district board has the authority to set the county district library tax levy. And with that money, the board can either establish or operate a library, or it could contract with another library system to provide services to the residents. Between 1966 and 1999, this library district board contracted with USD 500. In 97, a task force was called or formed, and in 98, the task force came down with a variety of recommendations. One of the recommendations was that they felt that the library funding was inequitable. So here's a listing of the mills at that time. You must remember that these are not the same level of mills as they are that you're used to seeing for county-wide, because they only are using the assessed value of the respective smaller areas, right? So, and I will show you that later on. So anyway, one of the key items of the task force, aside from wanting to more equitably distribute the mills amongst the various areas of the county, was that, that the county library board would have the responsibility to develop and promote through a new interlocal agreement and establish that. So try to speed through this a little bit.
You're doing great.
Oh, okay. So in '99, the
the task force recommendations were accepted, and as a result, the board was kind of reconstituted there to have an 11-member board rather than the 5 that was there in place previously. And we're going to talk about how these board members are appointed in a moment. In a slide I have it coming up. So back in 2000, they fixed the whole kind of inequitable mill levy level, and so they set it so that the library district tax mill levy in the year 2000 was established at 3.38 mills, and that is where it remained until 2007, which is what you'll see in another slide here I'm going to show you, because I'll show you the history of the mill levy rates of not only the library district, but also USD's dedicated library mill rate as well. So skipping down, so as a result, basically what we have now, a key point, so what we have now in place is an interlocal agreement. Pursuant to the interlocal agreement and state statute, the unified government collects the taxes produced by the library board tax levy and deposits the taxes in a separate library district fund. And so this agreement states that the Unified Government Director of Revenue, who is my treasury manager, distributes the funds collected by the library district according to the allocation formula contained in the current budget approved by the library district board. So they, as I pointed out at the beginning, they have the authority to establish this mill rate, and then this is the procedure for collecting the funds. So overall, as I mentioned before, there are 2 library systems. You have the Library County, the Wyandotte County Library District Board, which provides services to residents in Wyandotte County who reside outside, within the county, but outside the USD 500 school district and Bonner Springs. And this area includes most of the city of Edwardsville. It also includes the school districts of Piper and Turner. And the library district board consists of 11 members appointed by the commissioners, all of you. And the library district board has the authority to set the library district tax levy. Now, this board is in effect, part of the Kansas City, Kansas public library system. So the Kansas City, Kansas public library system operates within the boundaries of the USD 500 school district, is governed by a 7 board member who governs the school district as well. So USD 500 has its own mill rate for the operation of their libraries, and they receive funding from our district, our district library. And so combined, the Kansas City, Kansas Public Libraries also operates and manages the county library district. Lastly, the city of Bonner Springs has their own library district. The system operates within the boundaries of the city of Bonner Springs, and while there is a library board, it is governed by the city council and has its own city mill rate and partially funded from the Wyandotte County Library District Board to provide services to residents there. So here's the map. The various colors demonstrate where the school districts are within Wyandotte County. You've seen this before. As you can see, the yellow on this, well, sort of a greenish yellow on the east side of the county is the Kansas City, Kansas Unified School District 500, whereas over the yellow over there on the west is Bonner Springs School District. You have Turner down here in the south, and then up there you've got, up there you've got Piper. And what we have here are, in blue, are all the locations of the various libraries as they are distributed amongst the various areas of the county. So in order to represent all these areas, back in 1999, as part of the county commission, adopted this charter resolution, which established how the library district board is appointed. And so each of you have a library district representative whom you've appointed. So you can see. That's how it was set up in 1999, after consolidation. So I'm going to show you a little bit most of the about the funding mix. So most of the funding for libraries comes from the property tax. And so not all of it, but most of it. So we're going to focus just on that property tax. And as you can see, the top part is the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library System's property tax funding summary. And I provided a couple years here so you can see. The UG County Library District's assessed value is about $431 million, right? So you realize that's the lower part of the county. It does not include all of Kansas City, Kansas. It's only, right? And then the USD library is $710 million, so quite a bit bigger. And then the mill levy distribution, there you can see is 6 mills for the library district, and then 10.9 or almost 11 mills dedicated for libraries in the Kansas City, Kansas school district, right? So if you do the math, then over here on the 2018 property tax revenue, you'll see that the library district's 6 mills generates roughly $2.5 million a year, and the USD 500's library district mill of almost 11 mills generates $7.5 million. And so the difference between basically, they've got a 25-75 split for the funding of the library system, and that goes in line with sort of the utilization of the libraries in the respective areas. In addition, the city of Bonner Springs, a separate library system, has their own mill rate, and I thought I would just provide that. So their 5 mills generates about $325,000, not a whole lot, but some to help them operate their system. That's actually set by the city and county, or I'm sorry, the city of Bonner Springs City Council. So, additionally, Bonner Springs does get a little bit of funding from the Kansas City, Kansas Library District. They do about, and I have that noted here. They get about $183,000 towards the operation of their city library. And I imagine that's because in order to supplement their revenue stream for those residents outside of the KCK USD 500, that probably helped them as well. So, I don't know.
So I have a quick question, not to interrupt your presentation, but Bonner Springs has how many libraries?
They just have one.
And they operate that library on a budget of $322,000 a year.
No, they also have other revenue sources. The city of Bonner Springs Library has other revenue sources. They had a sales tax that supported capital and some operating, and there's other revenue sources. I'm only showing the property tax mix here.
Do you know what their total annual budget is for their one library?
I don't remember offhand, but I did look it up, so I just don't remember offhand. All right. Now here's the history of the mill rates that between the two respective districts or taxing entities. We have the county library mill rate starting from 2006, going back, that's at 3.38 mills that was adopted with that when consolidation occurred, and now it's gone up a little bit over the years. You can see the amount of change, and then over here on this side is the USD 500 library, and actually I can do one of these. So here's the USD 500 library. It started out at 7.7 and it's now 10.9. This big jump here, there was a mill rate increase in order to dedicate more funding for capital. All right. So, but generally speaking, the mills have increased fairly consistently between the two taxing entities. And so the very last slide is one that I'm going to leave to our chief legal counsel.
Well, this is just probably a very short summary of the framework, which kind of gives a commission's position and perspective. Is that back in 1965, the state adopted a statute which says that a municipality could establish a library district. And the statute defines a municipality as a school district, a county, or a city, or a township. So any of those organizations or entities could form a library district. So we had an election in 1965, or 1964, I'm sorry, and the citizens overwhelmingly approved having a free library system in Wyandotte County. And so the Wyandotte County Library District was formed after that election in 1965. So, so what we have is we kind of have three municipalities in Wyandotte County that run a library system. One is Bonner Springs, the city of Bonner Springs. USD 500 has a library system. And then the Wyandotte County Library Board runs the library system, or at least finances the library system for the rest of the county. And that's, I think they kind of call it the pet district, Piper, Edwardsville, and Turner. Now, so the Wyandotte County mill levy is just assessed against those areas, but we do not ourselves operate the library system. We essentially contract with USD 500 to perform that service for us. And then we again give some money to the Edwardsville, I'm sorry, not Edwardsville, the Bonner Springs Library to operate their library. Now, the statute, and this is a 1965 statute, it says that, that the library board sets the mill levy, then we collect, or we adopt that as part of our budget and collection, but then it's put into a municipal library fund, which is then turned over to the library board and the library district to operate the system. And so, but it does make very clear is that the commission doesn't have a role in setting that, as long as it's within the limits allowed by law. And this Attorney General's opinions, a couple of them, I think I quoted the one that's probably most on point. It's the library board, not the Board of County Commissioners, that establishes the amount of the tax levy to maintain the library system.
All right. That was pretty quick, so thank you. So any questions or comments from the commission in terms of it is legitimately complicated. I do want to recognize, of course, we have Senator Pat Petty here tonight, who is the president of the Wyandotte County Library Board, and Chuck Stites, who is he's the vice chair and is a council member in Edwardsville City Council. So thank you all for being here and for your leadership on this. Any questions or comments at this time?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Walters.
This is all very interesting, and it appears to me that the commission has had a lot of influence in this over the years, but really not a whole lot has been done in the last 20 years. And I see that a lot of this started in 1965, and you think about the county in 1965, half of it was unincorporated. And the one thing that was a little startling to me was Edwardsville seems to be under discussion quite a bit. I see in one of your notes that at some point someone decided that 1/3 of the revenue from Edwardsville would go to Bonner Springs and 2/3 should go to Kansas City. Yeah. And my observation is that Edwardsville, being part of the Bonner Springs School District, really relates to the Bonner Springs Library far more than they relate to any Kansas City, Kansas library. So I know we can't do anything about the mill levy, but if there's a parking lot of topics to think about at some point in the future, since it's been 20 years since this evidently has been evaluated, things do change, populations do shift, and it wouldn't be a bad idea, I think, at some point to have somebody look and just refresh our understanding of these various boundaries and the various ways that people utilize these services to make sure that we're doing the best job we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane?
And maybe it's time to look for a library out in Piper. We have one at the lake, but not at Piper.
All right. Any other comments? I do want to ask Senator Petty, if you'd like to come to the table and make a comment, you're welcome to do that at this time.
Thank you, and I appreciate having the opportunity to be on the library board. I would say that Commissioner Walters' comments are probably a good idea, because there was actually there was a study done in '99 about services, and that was part of the decision process by that 16-member board. Commissioner Walker would be very familiar about that. He was involved with that as well. Yeah, task force, sorry. But looking at how the libraries were being used and who was using them, because prior to that, the interlocal agreement was with Kansas City, Kansas Libraries, not with Bonner, and so that's when Bonner began receiving a portion of funding from the Wyandotte County Library Board, because of the way that citizens who lived in Wyandotte County were using the libraries. The money from the Wyandotte County Library Board is not distributed by population. So if that was the case, if you look at the numbers, about two-thirds lives in Turner. So, you know, two-thirds of the money would be going to Turner, but that's not how it's distributed, because the charge of the Wyandotte County Library Board is to make sure that there are services available for everyone who lives in Wyandotte County. That's why we have interlocal agreements with Kansas City, Kansas. We have our money. We have nothing to do with the management of the Kansas City, Kansas libraries. We do provide the full funding for the Turner Library, and that was established in, I think it's 2000, and that involved another interlocal agreement between the Turner School District and Kansas City, Kansas, and the UG for that library services. We contract with the Kansas City, Kansas library system to manage and run the Turner Library. So that's the only facility that's located in the Pet District. And yes, there may in the future be interest in another location in the Pet District. That hasn't come up in the last few years, but we anticipate that that could happen, that there could be interest in having some sort of library facility in Piper. But that involves, of course, interest on their part to look at a space and to figure out how that would occur. So as a library board, we don't own anything, and we contract with both at the Kansas City, Kansas and Bonner.
Thank you. Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you. I just wanted to go back a couple of slides, Kathleen, to the slide that shows the property tax funding summary, that one. The mill levy that we ratified was the 6.059. The 10.985, then that mill rate is adopted by the
USD School Board.
The KCK School
Yes.
Board. And so if
500.
I live in the boundaries of USD 500, am I paying the 10.9 or am I paying 17?
No, you're paying the 10.9.
Okay, so that's the one that's gonna show up on my bill if I live in KCK School District.
Correct.
And if I live outside of it, I'm going to see the other one.
Right. Nate Turner.
That's it, thanks.
Anyone else with a question? Commissioner Murguia.
Thanks. I believe you said that because these represent smaller taxing districts, that the 10.9 isn't what we typically say up here, which we would say that's $10.9 million. What does the 10.9 mill levy in USD 500, that's the amount?
Right there.
7 million.
Yes.
7.4.
Because the assessed value is smaller, it's not the whole county.
And does USD 500, that library district, get money beyond property tax like Bonner Springs does? Or is that all the money it gets, is the money that you see from property tax?
They also get this revenue here, motor vehicle registration taxes, delinquency, IRBs, they get interest earnings. And then they probably get other funding, whatever their school board decides. I didn't see their budget, so.
So I don't have the request for tonight, but what I would like to see, if this is possible, is I would like to see every library district, how many libraries they have,
Yes.
what their total annual revenue is from all sources. And just in a very easy one-page, 5.5 by 11 chart. Is that difficult to do?
Commissioner, I was working on that very chart, but we kind of ran out of time. We didn't get all the
That's fine.
information from the various sources. So I'd be happy to provide that to you as an information request.
Yeah, and then
to all of
one,
you.
one last thing, if you could provide us also with the population of the district, the resident population.
Library district.
Of the
not
library
commission
district. Yes.
You
of
probably-
the
A lot
li-
of districts.
You're probably gonna.
Yeah, of the library
You're probably
district.
gonna see that right here. See, you got
Yeah.
11,000 for Piper, 4,200 in the Edwardsville area, 19,000 for Turner.
And so USD 500 only serves 600 people?
Well, that's what was provided to us.
No, that's the portion of KCK that's in the Wyandotte County portion.
Right, this is just the Wyandotte County.
This is the Wyandotte County Board.
Okay, so there's too many variables here for
What do you
me
want
to
then?
keep track.
Tell me what you want.
So really easy, just list the districts. I think there's 4 or 5 of them.
Oh, and what their maybe
There's only
school
3.
employee or the school enrollment is?
No.
No.
It shouldn't, I don't think, does it have direct correlation with school enrollment? I'm talking about the population it's supposed to serve, because I don't go to school and I go to the library.
No problem, okay, I'll
Okay.
take 'em. I got
Yeah.
it.
Well, no, I was just checking, I wasn't. So if you could provide the name of the 3 districts, then provide us with their annual operating budget, their total annual operating budget, just not from property taxes, then the population of the library district. And then I asked one other question.
The total finances of their libraries.
Total what?
Finances of their libraries, isn't that what you asked for?
Yeah, you probably want to break out of the.
The
total
operating budget,
respective
yeah.
libraries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was working on that.
Okay, and just for clarity on the legal side of things, the state only mandates that their state statute, Kansas state statute mandates that our library board decides what the mill levy is, correct? But as far as how it's structured, everything else is structured, that is up to the commission's discretion, and no.
It's
that's all mandated by
interlocal
the
agreements, so we would have to have new agreements with Bonner Springs,
Plus,
Edwardsville, and the school districts.
Right, but that's what I'm
plus
saying,
there was
that's
a
all
voter-
decided on the local level through the school
there was a voter
district.
referendum that kind of mandates that.
Right, so it's not mandated by state statute how it's structured, it's only mandated by state statute that the board sets the mill levy, correct?
Well, I mean, there's more statutes governing the library districts than the one I quoted here, but I think really the way I understand your question is that we collect the money, I mean, the Wyandotte County District, we collect the money for the Wyandotte County Library District, and we turn it over to them, and then they have interlocal agreements with the different other entities that provide the services, like USD 500 in Bonner Springs, to provide the library services. And I think the commission has some, it's being, well.
if it was,
The fund, the formula, I think, is subject to interlocal, which I think the unified government is a party to that interlocal with the other districts. So we can't dictate it, but we can work out an agreement.
Could I just ask you, so there are 3 districts.
Can you turn on your microphone, sir?
So there are 3 districts. And so what if we decided we wanted to establish a Piper Library District? We could do that?
No, I think USD 2, whatever.
They're not in USD 500, are they?
Pardon?
Could our witness answer?
Can I answer that for you?
Our witness.
No. My understanding is no, you couldn't decide that, but the library board could decide that.
Okay.
And I think
Because the library board would be making decision, because we would be then contracting with someone to, whether it be Bonner or whether it be KCK, to manage it, because we would not run it. We don't run
The Piper
anything.
School District, since they fall under the definition of municipality, could form a library district just as USD 500 did.
And leave the
I think
interlocal
that's-
if they did that.
I don't believe that's correct. I'm sorry. That's not correct. They
So-
couldn't do that under statute.
Excuse me, but the presentation, I mean, I know it was short notice, but there's a lot of things that people seem to not be agreeing on. And we can't, the misinformation is not helpful in understanding.
Well, I don't think there's any misinformation. I think it's just a misunderstanding. So how about we do this? Because we are not going to fix anything for setting our budget next week, let's do this. Let's get the additional information we've asked for to send to all the commissioners. And then if after you digest that and you can reread this packet, if a commissioner would like to request that we bring the library conversation back to a special session, I'd be glad to schedule that. How's that? Fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might just add that, just as a reminder, that the Kansas City, Kansas libraries are under the Kansas City, Kansas School Board, and they established that budget. And Carol Levers is the director of the libraries, and that budget is not finalized. So that for this year, that would not be available by next week, I don't believe.
Well, we can we can see what it was last year.
Sure.
Yeah, we can see what it was last year. Okay. Senator, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman, thank you for being here, and thank you for your leadership on the library board. And I've learned a ton tonight. It's fascinating. Okay, we're going to move on. We have one more item, development project reports. Okay, we're going to click right through it.
All right, so this is a really a request about all the different projects we had working east of 635. And Mr. Stevens go through and do a little bit more comprehensive. It's hard to take a look at it and just say, here's a one-year snapshot, and then you get a good feeling of it. So he's got a little more historical, though it is a fairly quick presentation because he just kind of highlights what's going on across the county. So with that, I'll recognize John Stevens, our Director of Economic Development.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mayor John Stevens. I will keep this under 3 hours, so we'll keep it very brief.
Yes, you will.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I will be efficient. The task at hand tonight is to try to provide a review of a summary of projects, the working projects that we have currently at the level that we can share them, and then some impact of investment projects and some trends. The way that I think best to approach this, at least with this outline tonight, is to provide the economic development pieces, the geographic distribution of those projects, and then the impact of those projects, both financially, jobs, and cost. So this is very small, so I apologize. And I also, the OCD in me, the presentation on my screen stretched out, so it lost a lot of the visual acuity, so I apologize in advance for that. But I do want to run through just a 5-year summation of projects. So in 2013, there were 32 projects listed here, and this is a compilation with Wyandotte Economic Development Corporation, our partners, as well as our department. So of the 32 projects in 2013, 20 of them were east of I-635, and because of some large projects, 90% of the expense, the actual cost of those projects, was east of 635. Most of that, to be fair, in 2013 was a $600 million GM project. In 2014, we had 29 total projects. 21 of those were east of I-635. 53% of the economic impact of the economic spend was east of 635. And to give you an idea, that was Carter Energy, Caw Point Industrial, and then on the west side, it was U.S. Soccer, which was a very large project, $75 million. In 2015, we had 44 projects put through the pipeline, and of that, 30 of the 44 were east of 635, and 79% of the dollars invested were east of 635. Also, in fairness of those numbers, that included Certainteed, the second General Motors project, Casey State Company, and a large KU hospital project. In 2016, 38 total projects, and we had 18 east of 635, representing $392 million invested, which is about 44% of the total invested. Those included, again, General Motors, their third project, Central Industrial District, which was a large one, Kellogg, as well as another KU hospital project. So the total year to date for 2017, there are currently 22 projects that we have year to date as of last month. 43% of those are east of 635 and represent $41 million in investment. So in total, I'm sure you'll be able to see and tell where everything is on here, but I also wanted to give you a little bit of a preview of some of the projects that are working for the rest of this year and possibly into next year. So that includes, number one, downtown on Minnesota is an apartment tower project, 261 anticipated units. Number two is an apartment project, which is Turner Vista area, which is State Avenue and College. Number three, you can see on there is the American Royal. Number four, Healthy Campus. Number five, continuing KU Med projects and associated development there. Number six is another apartment project, and that is on Rainbow near the KU hospital campus. Number seven is called Project Post Oak. That is north of the Amazon project and is a pitched project as part of a large national search. Number eight is Indian Springs, represented there, continuing to work through the various processes. Number nine is Schlitterbahn Vacation Village and the next phases of retail and build out there. Then number 10 is Project Behavior, which is the EPA building project downtown. Number 11 is the Argentine project with the three fast food venues. The next one is residential Silver City, and then another apartment project, and then finally 39th and Rainbow Hotel project. So it's just a quick summation of some of the projects that are currently in various stages of discussion within the Department of Economic Development. So in summation, and trying to make this less than 2 hours, from 2013 to current, not counting the ones that are in that proposed project, working project list, we have 165 total projects. 98 of those occurred east of I-635, representing 59%. It's a $2.9 billion total capital investment. 68% of that total investment occurred east of I-635. And in new and retained jobs, we estimate 10,297 new and retained jobs, with 66% of those being east of 635. And my final conclusions and some of the trends that I think are important to share from my perspective and the seat I sit in right now is that obviously over the last 5 years there have been considerable investment across Wyandotte County. Many high capital, high employment projects have occurred east of I-635. And then future project flow indicates several trends, and I think it's important to cover these. Multifamily, we see a trend of it continuing to grow across the county, but we do believe, and I'm seeing that really east of 78th Street, we'll see a higher rate of growth. Maybe not total units, but a higher rate of growth. There's been a lot more infill and new project interest east of 78th Street. I think national trends indicate, and we're seeing it, we will see it here, that large-scale retail growth will probably slow, not just here, but nationally. But we see that infill retail, local retail projects will accelerate. And as we continue to work and create programs and ways to nurture local retail, growth of infill retail, I think that will be very important for us. And then we are continue to see a large interest in Wyandotte County with distribution and light industrial throughout the county where there are large acreages available. However, we are seeing some compression of available sites, so we will have to start looking at how we align sites for the future with having available acreage for those large projects like Amazon. And
can you go back one slide?
Absolutely.
We'll just hold it right there. All right, Mr. Commissioner Walker.
You know, I've been laboring under the impression we're not doing anything east of 635. It would appear that that not only was I laboring under a misapprehension, we need to move some of this to Turner. Now, I know the mayor counts Amazon as Turner, but it is not considered Turner by anybody who lives in Turner, I guarantee you. And it's only barely captured in the school district for.
Be nice.
So, I'd like to see some projects out in Turner. I mean, we're getting everything out in Piper and east of 635. We don't get anything. Commissioner Markley, speak up.
I'm looking at the map. Yeah, it's
pretty one-sided. We need to get out of the urban core now and start. Okay, I'm done. I've had my fun.
Okay. Amazon's the largest investment ever in District 202. Commissioner Bynum.
Thanks. Is there a slide that has the whole thing all together?
Yes,
Did
right
I see
there.
that?
Right there.
Could I see that again?
In summation here, yeah.
I mean, to Commissioner Walker's point.
See those two little dots there? That's Turner.
Isn't that your house?
Your house and Angela's house.
Well, look at where there's no dots.
So, my question, I mean, in seriousness, to your point, is it a fair statement to make, in your opinion and Mr. Bach's opinion, that part of what holds that area back is infrastructure? Is that a fair comment?
I think that would be a fair comment.
The Turner area. Oh, and the
For some
Leavenworth
projects.
Road area, to be frank.
And we've discussed also, as you look at the northern area, the Walcott area. That is a very large piece of acreage up there that is ripe for large-scale distribution, manufacturing, development, but for a levy to protect it and open that up for development.
I was just speculating that I think Turner has infrastructure needs, I think Leavenworth Road area has infrastructure needs, and I think the lack of those infrastructure investments hold back good, solid economic development in those areas, and I'm just making an observation.
Commissioner, if I might respond, Commissioner Bynum, I would say that in my very relative short time here, but assessing all of this, and then also working with Greg Kendall and our partners at WIDAC, that none of the areas, including Turner, none of the areas, even areas that have limited infrastructure build-outs, when there are opportunities, we run those down and look at those. The problem, what it becomes is it does become a pretty heavy capital lift for those private sector developers and/or a very high incentivized type thing, which many instances those deals just do not work until the infrastructure builds out to those areas.
Commissioner Markley?
I was just going to say, I mean, I think what this highlights is that while there are things happening east of 635, they're clearly concentrated along that. So we're seeing a lot of development in Village West, and we're seeing a lot happening far over from 635. But I think what this highlights is that there is still that middle section that includes Turner and really it's just the whole middle part of the county that is not getting as much development. And so I think in addition to just generally we have infrastructure needs there, what else can we do to promote that area? I mean, it's a great visual to be able to look at this and see all the dots along one side and say, well, that's great, but that's still not actually addressing the area that we were asking about initially. So thank you for putting this together, and I think it does provide us the information we needed. It's just actually a different result than we maybe anticipated, but still leaving that middle area open.
Commissioner McKiernan and then Philbrook.
So I think I would piggyback on that, and I think as I look at my district here, the dots are all where I would expect them to be, and that's in Armourdale. That would be where the high dollar, high investment jobs or projects would end up being, is in my primarily commercial industrial area. And I think what all of us are starting to look at is those projects that would start to fill out that wouldn't be the PQs of the world,
Right.
but would still bring investment into some of, they would necessarily be lower dollars in some cases, but they would start to bring that investment further west from the very eastern border of the county. And since this really came up originally, I think, as a function of our discussion around raising our increasing our total valuation for the purpose of ultimately lowering dollars of property tax per dollar of assessed value, I think we, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we see the blessing and the curse of this investment right now. There's a large dollar amount of investment shown on this screen, but since you're only showing the last 5 years, we are still, since we incented most of that development, we are still in the time period of deferring the ultimate gain from that investment. We have set in place investments that will begin to pay off for us in coming years, but in the meantime, those incentives are delaying the ultimate return monetary return we get from those investments. Would that be correct?
No, absolutely, okay. Commissioner. And I mean, Mr. Bach could speak more completely as to the history of all these projects. However, I'll say generally, with these incentive structures that are timed, the great thing about them is once you start the clock, you know that investment is going to go on the tax rolls and it is going to roll off, and so you can kind of start timing those out, and I do think that's important. But in the meantime, you also are you're retaining and generating jobs, and as we were going through and assembling this, there were literally thousands of jobs that were truly, some are not as at risk, but there are thousands of jobs that were truly at risk of jumping to another community that we're able to retain. And many of these other projects, we track what the new hire rate will be. So if they expand, relocate, we generate new jobs there.
And that was my point from the other night, is that these, although we are delaying our ultimate gain from these, we are not losing by incenting these developments. We are in fact getting amenities, we are in fact getting jobs, we are in fact contributing to the strength and the growth of our districts and our neighborhoods, but we are necessarily delaying the ultimate amount of monetary gain that we'll get from them.
And I would also add that this truly, this is a relatively compressed frame to put all of these projects together, to bring them to the commission to review tonight. So this is truly a snapshot. I do think it encompasses a lot of the major projects. It encompasses a pretty good breadth of projects, but this does not encompass the literally hundreds of small projects, NRA projects, a lot of these other projects that have invested in the community. They're not represented on here, but they are important, and they continue to accelerate. And knock on wood, we have to keep those accelerating.
Commissioner Philbrook and then Murguia.
So also going along with our future development and what's starting to take place now is because a lot of our industrial areas are already being developed, and we don't have quite the variance or opportunity in some of those for bigger ones or certain size. Now we're looking along our corridors, like the Turner Diagonal Corridor, I-70, K32, all of that. And so those are the new booming locations. Although I wish Leavenworth Road would boom, but it's a whole different type of boom up there. But I would like to see development up there. And I don't know how we can create that corridor into something, economic development of some type. But I would like to keep that in mind as we move forward. Thank you.
Noted, Commissioner. Thank you.
Commissioner Murguia.
Okay, so thanks a lot for your hard work on this, and I get the general picture, but I personally think this is very deceiving.
Okay.
And it's not sending a clear message of what's really going on. So for example, if most of the development you see east of 635 appears to be industrial, correct?
A very large portion of it, yes, industrial and institutional with the hospital.
So if you want to compare one neighborhood to another, do you really want, and you want to share in that, do you want industrial development in Turner?
Yeah.
Okay. And where would you put it, and where is it zoned appropriately for industrial?
We got the whole bottom area.
Okay.
Well, I think,
By the river.
Commissioner, I think
I want jobs.
I think your
want
point
Turner
is,
to have decent opportunity for jobs.
I think your point that you might be getting at is my point as well, is this reflects to me good city planning. Because the areas where you don't have commercial dots are residential areas.
That's right.
And you're not gonna put some of the projects down in Armourdale in Piper or Leavenworth Road or the residential portion of Turner. Now, you do have commercial portions of Turner that are on the Kansas Avenue corridor around the railroad tracks. There's a lot of good commercial property there. So I think this is good city planning because we have the commercial in our commercial areas, we have our residential in the residential areas. That's the part of the gist is we have 3 employment nodes. We have Village West, we have Fairfax, and we have KU Med. 11,000, 11,000, 12,000 jobs respectively.
What it also still tells me, though, is that the demand for industrial development is still high across the board. And industrial development is willing to locate in Wyandotte County, but in a very specific area east of 635. And that doesn't necessarily translate into jobs for Wyandotte County residents, and we already know that. Are all of these businesses employing only Wyandotte County residents?
Well, I doubt any of them are employing only, I don't think.
I was just curious. Right.
I mean, we are getting
I'm just saying, we're
jobs.
talking about, though, as if the way we're talking to the general public and what we're demonstrating is that if we're creating jobs through these developments, that they're only hiring Wyandotte County people. I just don't want any misrepresentation.
I don't think anyone's ever represented that.
Okay, so east of 635 is predominantly attracting commercial because they have commercially zoned areas. And that's good. What I'm also saying, though, is that areas, we're still not attracting things like retail and amenities and growing our tax base. And those retail amenities is what is going to attract people to our community. People want to live in communities where they have everyday amenities. And so what is concerning to me is those areas that are ripe for retail development, other than Village West and the KU area, like Leavenworth Road and in Turner.
State Avenue is too.
Okay, well, you can see it. There isn't retail attraction there, and there obviously would never be industrial attraction there, and we would never want it there. Right. So it's not really to say, oh, there's 10 over here and there's none here, so it's 10-0. I just don't want to misrepresent that to people. I'm saying it's great we're attracting industrial. It's great that our staff are working on it, but I think where the disconnect comes and why sometimes the commission collectively complains about what's not available is I haven't heard Commissioner Townsend ever say, be advocating up here on the high demand and need that her constituents want to see more industrial development. But I have heard her say, I want to see a grocery store in the Northeast. So it's a little bit misrepresentative of what the intent of the question was on where the development is happening. So it's good. Nobody was, this seems to be more in defense of that staff are saying, see, we are working on all these projects. And maybe I wasn't clear. I absolutely believe our staff are working on projects. But it may not necessarily align with what the priority projects are of our constituents or the commission. Okay?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Is that clear?
No, I think it completely makes sense. And I'll tell you, I was not tasked to create a defense. I was tasked to outline what are economic indicators that we could show and represent, that show how Wyandotte County has developed. And I certainly appreciate the comment concerning commercial versus local, retail versus industrial. I think that's an important conversation to have, and I would completely agree with you, Commissioner.
Yeah, so yes, there's a lot of development going on. There's a lot of job creation, which is fantastic. But we can't get those people to live in our community if they don't have the amenities, and not just that they need in their community to live. And it can't just be in one area of the city. So I do think there's absolutely opportunities for that. I think that's where the disconnect is.
I do want to point out that we have the lowest unemployment rate in 20 years. And so the bringing in of jobs, the retaining of jobs, the last unemployment report, and I believe all the commissioners are sent that, the last unemployment report showed it's at an all-time low. So that's really great news, though we have more work to do because we have too many folks in Wyandotte County who are still unemployed or underemployed. But we're trending in the right direction. All right, Mr. Bach.
A little bit, Commissioner, because I did understand, I think, where you were going with not just showing the industrial manufacturing, and that's where John layered on these blue dots, which I think is all of those big blue dots you see that are underway now. Those are all commercial, retail, or housing. So that gives you a good perspective of where we're spending our time when it comes to that type of project work. And quite frankly, you don't really see it. Visual aids really point out we spend most of our time working east of 635. So it did kind of pop out to me as we went to it how much we spend in efforts. Because I'll also say every time we work in the urban core on those kind of projects, we probably spend 5 times as much effort trying to advance a project as we do the ones out in the western area.
I would certainly agree.
And then a lot of times they fall off the chart, and then we go back and try to find something else to replace them. So,
and why is that?
They're just more challenging projects to do.
They're harder deals usually.
What's harder about them?
Well, you can tell us what's harder about urban redevelopment.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the brownfield?
I don't want to say it anymore. I tried to. I want to hear it from them.
No, we know exactly what it is. It's brownfield development. It's absentee landlords trying to acquire property, assemble property, property assemblage, brownfields, redevelopment. You dig in, you want to build a new house, and you dig in, and there's a house that was collapsed 40 years ago that they just poured into the basement, and you have to excavate it. I mean, everything about urban development is harder, and so it takes staff a lot more time to pull it off.
And when they run their numbers, they won't calculate rents or sales at the same level.
The dreaded feasibility, market feasibility study circles that many developers look at impact that return.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Again, I agree. Commissioner Murguia really took further a point that I had made earlier, and that was that a lot of the development was in the industrial commercial section. But if you actually look up here north of the river in where we're sitting, there isn't a dot there. And so I completely appreciate that we've got 2 levels that we're working on here. One, to grow the valuation so that we ultimately get more in property taxes, and from commercial, wonderful, because that helps all of us in terms of how much tax we pay and the valuation. But the second piece is, if I really want to grow the population of my downtown neighborhood, I have to have those non-commercial, non-industrial projects that serve as amenities, that serve as anchor points for people to say, hey, I want to live there, because they've got all those cool places that I can go shop or play or do whatever it is. And so I completely appreciate your point that this is part of the picture, but especially when we're talking about redeveloping our urban neighborhoods, it's only part of the picture, and we have a lot of work to do on those smaller but very important projects.
Well, and let's not forget the impact of, we're doing a $25 million road project on Leavenworth Road. That's going to change the dynamic of investment up there. And our investment in our parks. Parks are amenities that people want, and bringing our parks up to a standard that will attract housing. There's just a lot to do. But I think we're on the right track. So, all right, that concludes our meeting tonight. We could stay 10 more minutes and make it to 9 o'clock. Hal, you want to stay? Nope. Nope. We are adjourned.